The results from Tuesday's primary election are in. The planning board makes strides on MBTA Communities Act compliance, and trouble with school bus transportation continues as students begin classes again. I'm Brendan Fitzpatrick, and this is The Frame, Framingham News in Focus. Hi, and welcome to The Frame, an initiative of Access Framingham. We start this week with a recap of the unofficial results from Tuesday's primary election. The contested races locally occurred on the Democratic Party ballot, as we outlined in last week's episode. 7th Middlesex District State Representative Jack Patrick Lewis will keep his spot on Beacon Hill, as he was able to stave off a primary challenge from Carlton Phelps. Unofficial results show that Lewis won by over 2,000 votes in Framingham and another 1,000 in Ashland, paving the way for Lewis's fifth term at the State House. In the four-way race for the Democratic Party's nomination for the District 2 Governor's Council seat, Tamisha Civil emerged victorious over Sean Murphy, Muriel Kramer, and David Reservitz. Kramer actually had the most votes among Framingham voters, but Civil's performance across the entirety of the nearly 40 cities and towns that District 2 comprises was enough to solidify her spot in the general election. She'll be up against Republican Francis Crimmins Jr., who was uncontested in the primary. Speaking of the GOP, John Deaton won big in Framingham and across Massachusetts as a whole, as he secured the Republican nomination for U.S. Senator. He won about 65% of the statewide vote, and his 850 tallies in Framingham were more than Bob Antonellis' 424 and Ian Kane's 107 combined. He'll attempt to knock off Elizabeth Warren in November. Other races for positions within the state government were uncontested, as Democrats Karen Spilka, Danielle Gregoire, Priscilla Souza, and Kate Donahue will be sworn in for another term. About 19% of the registered voters in Framingham took part in the primary election, according to city officials. Meanwhile, the planning board and other local officials are working towards presenting their plan to get Framingham in line with the MBTA Communities Act to the city council. The law mandates that any city or town with MBTA service has to have at least one multifamily housing district as of right in its zoning. Any community out of compliance can run the risk of missing out on state funding for a variety of causes. No construction is required through the law. It just dictates that municipalities have to provide the zoning. Framingham is currently in line with the act, and local officials have expressed confidence that they can be in compliance by the start of 2025. But that begins by getting the ball rolling on the legislative front. Director of Planning and Community Development for the city, Sarkis Sarkeesian, outlined the zoning proposal for about 4,400 units across Framingham during the Planning Board's meeting last Thursday, August 29th. More than 3,600 units would be spread across the downtown area, according to the presentation, while anywhere from 200 to 300 would be zoned into Shoppers World, the former Staples corporate headquarters site, and a plot at the corner of Speen Street and Old Connecticut Path. Questions remain on height limits for buildings within these districts, though, and public hearings are still to come leading up to year's end, as are readings from the City Council prior to the final submission to the state. Sarkeesian did mention, however, that he wants to get the draft proposal submitted soon, prior to soliciting additional feedback from the community. The Framingham School Committee voted to continue their contract with NRT Bus Incorporated next year during their meeting on Wednesday, though just through leasing their buses in preparation for the creation of an in-house school bus system with drivers hired as city employees. Students in Framingham continue to feel the strain of the local bus driver shortage. The city's contract with NRT calls for 77 drivers to serve the community, but there are just 53 drivers in Framingham to begin the school year. Executive Director of Finance and Operations for the school district, Lincoln Lynch, told the committee that more than 800 students are still awaiting their bus assignments. The city has been looking to launch an in-house busing model to start the next school year, as Wednesday's vote paves the way for just NRT's buses to be used while having city employees operate them. Right now, though, Lynch explained that it's hard to interview candidates while advising them to wait about 10 months to begin in a city role. He added that posting for in-house drivers could lead to current NRT drivers applying, thus resulting in no net gain in drivers serving Framingham. One major advocate for an in-house system has been District 4 School Committee member Adam Freudberg, who called upon city officials to work towards starting the process of securing in-house drivers now, and to establish the steps that need to be taken prior to the official change.
I understand there might be some trade-offs, but this is a hard transition, and a pilot program to get even a few drivers in-house early with the understanding that everyone else will follow is what I think we as a community, as a committee, should really focus on right now, because those numbers of how many kids are turned away who need rides continues to be appalling.
Now, while those shortages continue, school officials highlighted possible transportation alternatives for Framingham families, such as the carpool platform that's been unrolled in recent months, along with bikes that are being made available at no cost for middle schoolers and high schoolers. A reminder for you about a series of events taking place downtown this weekend. On Saturday, local businesses will be the focus of the first ever Framingham Business Trade Show, from noon to 4 p.m. at the Downtown Common on Park Street, as well as along Union Ave from Concord to Proctor Streets. Visitors can enjoy food and live music while learning more about the businesses that call Framingham home. The Spooktastic Book Fair is also taking place on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the main library branch on Lexington Street. More than 40 horror authors for all ages will be on hand for discussions, signings, and more. Free parking will be provided at various sites across the downtown area for the trade show and the book fair, though drivers should know that Union Ave will be closed between Concord and Proctor that day. As for Sunday, the main public library will be welcoming residents from 2 to 4 p.m. to celebrate Brazilian Independence Day. Attendees will celebrate Brazilian history and culture, with guests such as Mayor Charlie Sisitsky and State Representative Souza set to speak as well. If you want to stay up to date with news that matters to your community, you can log on to our website, www.theframe.news. From more details on stories that we cover on the program each week to feature pieces that we complete across the city, you can find it all there, the newest source for local information. Follow us on social media too. Our Instagram and X accounts can both be found at FrameNews_. Subscribe to Access Framingham's YouTube channel and hit the bell icon there to ensure that you never miss an episode of our show. Find us on Facebook just by searching for The Frame too. And finally this week, an encore presentation of a segment on Framingham FORCE that we featured a year ago. September is recognized by the CDC as National Recovery Month, as advocates aim to highlight treatment and recovery resources for those with substance use disorder. Framingham FORCE is a local group that aims to raise awareness and compassion in regard to the nation's ongoing opioid epidemic. If you've driven by the Center Common over the past few days, you may have noticed flags planted in the grass along Edgell Road. Those flags represent one person who died due to an overdose within Massachusetts in the past year. Last September, we met with Kathy Miles, the co-founder of Framingham FORCE, along with other community members who took part in the flag planting.
I wanted to be able to give people hope.
Right? No wrong way to do it.
I have a loved one who's in recovery, and I wanted to show that recovery is possible and that it's very real.
Kathy Miles is the co-founder of Framingham FORCE, an organization with an important mission: to combat the opioid epidemic through compassion, education, and advocacy. Here in Framingham Center Common, Kathy and her force seek to bring awareness to that mission, one flag at a time.
One flag represents one person who died of an overdose in Massachusetts.
It's a way that people can pass by and see it, because sometimes it feels like the crisis is just statistics. So this really puts it into perspective of how many lives have been lost due to opioid addiction.
And a reminder, if you want to see that full piece that we conducted last year on Framingham FORCE, you can log on to theframe.news or head to Access Framingham's YouTube channel. And if you or someone you know is struggling with substance use disorder, Framingham FORCE could be of assistance. Their website is framinghamforce.org. More details can be found there. That's all we have for this week's Framingham News in Focus. For our entire team here at The Frame, thanks for joining us this week. I'm Brendan Fitzpatrick. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.